to New Rockstars. Agatha All Along has come to an end, and as we do at the end of every Marvel title, we must look back at a season's worth of theories predicted well and predicted poorly as we seek to answer the final question of what we got wrong.
We need to have a game show sound for it. Do we have a game show sound for it yet?
We got some people in the studio here who can say it with us.
We can chant, what we got wrong. Thank you, Evan. Oh, God. This is the sneak peek, the weekly show at New Rockstars. We bring the future of fandom to you, but today we're talking about what we got wrong. So the future of, the past of what we got wrong.
That's right.
Wait, I didn't say it. You're Erik Voss and I'm Jessica Clemons. I got it right this time because last time y'all came at me, made fun of me for saying that I was Erik Voss.
How could you guys come after her? We have to introduce each other. It gets so confusing here.
They were going to my Instagram in the comments going, hey, Erik. And I was like, I'm not Erik. I just made a mistake.
Found you on Insta. They crossed platforms to come after you. That shows dedication and cruelty. Stop it.
Dedication and cruelty. The meanest thing they've ever said.
You know, I think I have to give ourselves at least an A- for our predicting abilities for Agatha All Along. It wasn't perfect, but we actually did a way better job predicting stuff for this show than we normally do.
I was going to say respectfully, it was like when a teacher curves the grade because we've been so wrong about the other things.
Yeah.
To be fair, in Deadpool Wolverine, they gave us a lot to work with, so it was a lot of predicting. So is there a way, can we be at fault really if we give them 100 predictions and like 50 come right? You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't think there's anything wrong. Hey, I will never apologize for theory crafting ever. No, definitely we've screwed up in the past. But I think the difference now is with Deadpool and Wolverine, they admitted to sending out incorrect, false theories, like it's just kind of to throw us off the scent. Agatha All Along, I think Jack Schaefer every week would do interviews and kind of like help us. She would just kind of like say, I can't talk about that yet. And then we would know that there was still room to theorize about stuff. And I felt like it was a much more, it was less stressful process. It was just more fun to go down this road.
100%. And this one was like, we knew it wasn't that it was in a sandbox or it was in a box, but we knew where it was going. There's only so much you can do in like the supernatural of the MCU versus when you have the multiverse. When you have the multiverse, I'm like, anyone can show up. Anyone can do anything. This, we were given a good amount to work with.
Yeah, I think so. And with it being so open-ended what this show could be, from it all being a dream, which kind of arguably was within the imagination of a kid, to it being specifically grounded in the lore of witchcraft in our world versus the lore of witchcraft within the MCU, or how connected it would be to WandaVision. There were so many places it could be. So I feel like the theory crafting was harder, but I think we have gotten better title over title at like knowing when something seems like, barking up the wrong tree or a red herring.
Speak for yourself. I think I know when they're like too extravagant, because I feel like I still come from a place that's like behind the scenes money ball, like what is actually going with Marvel Studios. And so a lot of my predictions are like, would this happen? I would love for this to happen. Feasibly, will Kevin Feige let this happen? Absolutely not.
Right. Yeah.
But
I think you kind of have to understand a bit how Hollywood works. But so much of the fandom online doesn't take that into consideration. No, 100%. At all.
There's like, even if like, I'm not even trying to be this person. If it's like, bringing Wanda back, I'm like, that's a really big stuff that is already like, if they're planning stuff for Wanda already on like a track, that would be a hiccup. But also Elizabeth Olsen might be acting in a million other things right now.
Right. Yeah. And we would know just based off of the number of people who have to be involved in this conspiracy and the number of outdoor shoots that they're doing and how much attention there is on Elizabeth Olsen's travel movements. Yeah. If she were going to be in the show.
I think because also Elizabeth Olsen was attending like conventions and I was like, no one else from Agatha All Along is. And I think it's because they're busy. And I was like, okay.
Yep. So we're going to go theory by theory of like big questions that we had throughout the run of this show. And we're going to revisit what we said and what actually was revealed to be the truth about it. And we're going to start with the big one. Will Mephisto appear in Agatha? I said, absolutely not. Jessica said, absolutely not. And wouldn't you know it? Absolutely not. No Mephisto on the show. And Jack Schaefer said she's not interested in Mephisto as a character. I love the fact that they gave him a shout out in episode 3, though. I felt like that was a bonus that we didn't deserve, but we got.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful. But yeah, we didn't need him in the show.
No,
and
100%.
I think people forget in the Marvel Comics how cosmic of a character Mephisto is. He's someone who's like involved with, is introduced as a Silver Surfer affiliated character. So it's only later where it becomes more of an earthbound tied with the origin of the Mephistopheles figure in our lore, in our spiritual lore and traditions. But really he started as just like, hey, a lot of characters, including Lady Death, are like space set characters. So if you go back to like what Mephisto is or what Death is in the Marvel Comics, it's like there's not a lot of inspiration here. But I think with the character of Wanda Maximoff, why we thought so hard that he's going to appear in WandaVision is because he does have that connection to Wanda and her kids.
Yeah, 100.
So I think we can forgive ourselves for thinking that Mephisto would show up in WandaVision.
Yeah.
But anyone who thought he was going to show up in Agatha, I don't know what evidence you were looking at.
I think the evidence was hope. Also, when you said Mr. Mephistopheles, I don't think you said Mr. Mephistopheles. I think you just said Mephisto.
Mephistopheles?
Mephistopheles. And I was like, the cat from Cats?
Oh, can we just like talk about Cats for 30 minutes?
Can we put Mephisto in Cats and have him blow it up? Have it blow it up to smithereens?
Yeah, I just want to be clear because I think with this show, a lot of people were like, no Mephisto again in Agatha. And I think to me, that tells me you weren't actually watching our content this season, because every time it came up, I was very clear. I don't want him in the show. He's not going to be in this show. And let's stop talking about him. But there are several people online who actually did predict that Mephisto was going to show up at the end. None of them are doing content like this, talking about what they get wrong.
Yeah.
We only do that here because we want to be responsible to you guys when we make predictions before we move on to the next thing.
Vindicated.
Next theory. Will Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, cameo on Agatha All Along? Jessica, you said no.
Yeah.
And I said no, and that Elizabeth Olsen will not appear on the show. But I did leave out the possibility that she could appear in the form of like a shadow or a silhouette or like archive footage, or that they might like just decide that Jane Doe body was Wanda and make it very clear that it's her. But we won't see Elizabeth Olsen's face or any new lines or anything like that. And kind of through memories, Billy hearing her voice from the ending of WandaVision, we got Elizabeth Olsen's archive voice in it. But yeah, no new story for the Scarlet Witch.
No Wanda.
Now, let's talk about this, though. Do you think this story of Agatha All Along would have been served by an appearance of Wanda Maximoff? I think we can agree Mephisto didn't need to be in it, but it didn't need more Wanda in it.
No, because it's not a Wanda story. It's Agatha's story. And the only part of Wanda that contributed to the story was the teen and the beginning of Agatha getting out of her dream, which would have just been another speed bump of like, okay, we answered this, but doesn't really help along with the story.
Yeah.
I think it's fine that Wanda wasn't in it, but I don't think that's what the fans feel like.
Yeah, I think they knew their audience, that there would be a lot of the WandaVision audience coming back for this show. And it is like kind of a sequel series to the WandaVision series. If Wanda wasn't going to ever appear in it, I do wish that they didn't keep bringing her back up throughout the episodes. They kept bringing her up in dialogue. Is she dead? Yes, no, maybe. Like, you didn't need that line. You didn't. I think they could have been more definitive in explaining what we were actually seeing in episode 1 in that morgue. Like, yes, what's more definitive than a corpse with a labeled toe tag? I understand, but the fact that it was on a library card and everything in that illusion was like something Agatha was going through. We just didn't ever get a clarification from an objective point of view of what was happening in that moment. I assume Agatha was in her basement with Rio, but like we never revisited that, and I feel like that left the door open for the Wanda hopefuls.
Yeah, I see why it would leave the door for the Wanda hopefuls, but it still wouldn't move along the show.
No, you're right.
And that's why it's like, yeah, I understand. Like they did bring it up a lot, and we just never saw it, and we wanted questions answered, but it wouldn't move Agatha all along.
That's a good point. And that's why I respect the decision not to bring her in. Yeah. All right. The next theory that was really the big question the first half of the season. Who is Teen? We now know that he is kind of a mixture of William Kaplan as the body of William Kaplan with Billy Maximoff's soul inhabiting that body. But early on, my theories were all over the place. And I will admit, this is probably the biggest thing that I fumbled with my theories for this. I said in our breakdown for episode 1 and 2 that the teen was Billy, but Billy was possessed by the ghost of Nicholas Scratch. And that there was that he was also like in the Agnes of Westview represented by the Darkholds because Agatha had made this trade of the Darkhold for Nikki, you know, and that kind of transfer made them all one thing. And that was wrong. That theory was wrong. I can't remember what you said when we.
I don't think I ever like answered who is Teen. I just assumed that it was also Billy. But I remember you saying that at one point of being like, oh, because I thought for a piece of, I think a lot of us for a minute thought Nicholas Scratch was just the son. Mm-hmm. Like the son, like somehow soul got turned into this rabbit, or Agatha was hiding her son as the rabbit. Rabbit never came back after the second episode or the first episode. But no, it was the second episode. But yeah, I think I just assumed it was Billy, and I guess that's right. But it wasn't like hard to guess when it was like revealed, like, oh, the Wiccan, and also in auditions, it was like we're auditioning for the teen / Billy, and I was like, oh, okay, so I just assumed.
Yeah. I think one thing that this show did really well and really benefits from a rewatch is just Jack Schaefer and her team knew exactly what they wanted these reveals to be and successfully worked backwards through the episode to layer it with all this evidence so that when you rewatch this show, just look at Catherine Hahn's performance. Like on her face, she is telling the complete story so that it all tracks and makes sense. There's really no loose ends. The way Billy is kind of reacting to it in real time. Like he doesn't fully realize that it was his imagination, his bedroom that populated the decor of this witch's road. But like, it's all there from the beginning. And I was just really, really impressed with that. I think this is something that I remember when we were talking about episode 3 or episode 4 in the break room. I posed the question like, is this always good TV? And in retrospect, yes, I think it was excellent TV. But I think in the moment, I felt a little frustrated with this show for Marvel and Star Wars, yet again, telling a story of people who don't really know who they are, discovering who they are through some journey. And then that's the whole mystery. And sometimes I just miss a show where it's just a character who knows exactly who they are, not deceiving or playing this kind of tug of war of exposition with the viewer and just on a mission, on a clear mission to do something. And then other obstacles come in the way rather than a blindness to oneself and one's own powers.
Yeah, I get that. I feel that too, because it's all, but a lot of the Marvel, especially the TV shows, are origin stories. And so we had to get an origin story for Wiccan. I also think that code for Marvel only really works for characters that's been told a million times, like the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. You don't really need to do an execution of who they were at the beginning. We get how they got their powers. You can just jump in the middle, which we did with Tom Holland. It was just like, oh yeah, this is Spider-Man. He has an aunt. We know the same dance. It's kind of hard to do that with Wiccan. Wiccan's a very Wiccan's a weird, because I think you could still kind of do that with Miss Marvel, but I'm like, Wiccan's a weird one because his powers come kind of from trauma.
Yeah. I think Marvel is at its best when it's not doing the origin story formula. Iron Man, most of the stories in phase 1 were origin stories. Yeah. A lot of the stories in phase 4 have been origin stories as we've been introducing new characters. But I think is Guardians of the Galaxy an origin story? It kind of feels like a team heist movie in a way.
But we saw them become a team.
We saw that it was the origin of the team. That's true.
I feel like all of their stories, everyone that gets a trilogy, it's a trilogy origin, which is like kind of what we got with Spider-Man. It was like, oh, now he's finally Spider-Man. Same with like Thor. I think after like Thor 3, he was like, okay, I'm finally Thor. Same with Iron Man. I was like, he is confident in himself now as Iron Man and maybe no more obstructions in the way. But I feel like they always do origins. We're just like in love with when they do the the Avengers movies,
Yeah.
which isn't an origin story. It's always like, oh, team up. We know what they're doing. They're jumping into it.
Yeah, weirdly, the first Avengers movie was an origin story in the same way.
Team.
For the team and for some of the characters. It was the first time we saw
true.
Black Widow. And the first time we saw this version of Hulk. It was Mark Ruffalo recast as the character. But Age of Ultron, Infinity War, Civil War, Endgame were not origin stories. They were like either revenge plots. And Infinity War was structured to be a Thanos story, like a Thanos conquest story of like, and the other characters just trying to prevent the inevitable and then failing.
I mean, it's probably the most basic thing I will say, but that's probably just Marvel's math of like, oh, we give them origins, but remember that the moneymaker, the big thing is that Avengers movie. It will always, everything goes to that Avengers movie. Everything. If you get 17 movies, they will be origins because they're getting them ready for the Avengers movie.
Yeah, you know what? I think the other 3 Avengers movies have been, I'm trying to think of like back to when I still thought Blake Snyder's Save the Cat book was like a storytelling Bible.
Save the Cat.
It's not, but like I think
we all read that damn book?
That's stupid. That's helpful, but like it's just it's a tip of the iceberg.
Don't give me that book. If you show me that book, I'll throw it out of the window.
There's better screenwriter and story structure.
I guess I should say that first. I don't think it's a bad book for people that are especially just going into college. I had to read that book in like college, and then another teacher forced us to read that book, and then I came here and everyone's like, "Have you read Save the Cat?" And I was like, "I'm going to strangle myself." It's
to screenwriting what truth and comedy is to improv. I think it's a good starting place just to like help you to think critically about these things from a more academic analytical standpoint. But there is one of the story types that Blake Snyder outlined, which was genie out of the bottle stories or curse stories, where it's like the characters are trying to fight off this curse of something that they unleashed from the bottle, and they have to like put it back in the bottle. So Age of Ultron is that type of story, 100. Right? And in a way, Infinity War is that type of story if you consider that Tony Stark is the one who threw the warhead at Thanos' fleet and then brought Thanos to Earth by challenging him, right? Endgame is a weird one because it's almost like they're trying to put back in a bottle like the Infinity Stones and just trying to like use them but not abuse them and then put them back in history. The story structure of Endgame is so weird because it's like several different stories and it's kind of like trying to, it feels almost like what The Martian is. There's like these stories about like impossible problems that require teamwork to solve. Apollo 13 is a similar type story. Like lots of different, big egos coming together to just like fix what seems like an impossible problem.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I think Agatha All Along was like another origin story for Wiccan. But for Agatha, they decided, Jack Schaefer said, not to give her like a redemptive arc. Yeah. And I thought that was really cool that it was Agatha could just be Agatha. And she almost hit a transformation. It's just like we didn't really know what Agatha's point of view was throughout the series until a little bit later, right?
I don't even think.
Until maybe episode 8.
Her only drive was her son. And her son was gone.
Or she wanted to get her power back.
She wanted to get her powers back, yeah. But it's like she also like. She was just like, it was like powers and my child. That was the only things that are like motivation for me. And she was always trying to get her powers back. Yeah, I'll let it. I'll think, yeah, I guess episode 8. I honestly don't think I really kind of saw it.
Yeah, right. I until we found out that she had that she got the ballad from her son and that she had actually used this ballad in this twisted way to trick all these witches. I don't think we fully knew what her MO was. And I didn't necessarily need it because the show was so well crafted otherwise that I was just along for the ride and I loved it. But the reason I'm like leading us through this part of the conversation is I think we need to, when we are assessing future titles like this and, doing after shows and sneak peek conversations about it, is like assess what type of story it seems to be. Yeah. Is it a story about a character? Is it an origin story for a character? Well, that means it's going to close off some options of what type of things can happen in the show. Is it a story about, is it a team heist type story? Is it something like Thunderbolts? Yeah. Thunderbolts is going to be. Is it something like a revenge plot, like a Kill Bill type story? Yeah. I don't, have we seen that in the MCU for a main character? No. Like Loki kind of had that in the first Avengers movie, right? He was just getting his.
I feel like they're setting up Shang-Chi's sister to do that. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, you know what? Multiverse of Madness was a revenge story in a way. It's not like she was getting vengeance on the Earth, but just like an active character just trying to get hers. You know, that was similar structurally.
Well, it's hard when you have a team of writers that want to write what they want to write, and then you also have a giant studio that needs to make sure it stays on track with their mission. Because I think we're gonna get a lot of origins no matter what. But the writers and the head writers and their team are wanting to write something that has depth to it.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard to be like, this is an origin story, but you can't do these things because you have two titans working together, and it's just impossible, unfortunately.
I think you also have to look at who the showrunner or like director of the show is versus, and have they done shows for Marvel before?
Yeah.
And has Marvel given them enough creative freedom to structure it like a TV series? Because there have been Marvel miniseries on Disney Plus in the past that have essentially been movie pitches that they have structured into 6 chunks. And then that has really limited the growth for other side characters. But as we saw in Loki and in WandaVision and in Agatha All Along, they were really structured like TV shows, and that we could focus on side characters and give little miniature arcs for them. So it widened the possibilities for what could be established for Lilia on this show, and for what could be established for Alice and for Teen. And if you compare that to Moon Knight or to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier or to Hawkeye, like, yes, Kate Bishop was given a pretty strong backstory, but she was like a co-lead. But other characters like Kazi could not be given big arcs. Eleanor Bishop's arc, I think, was a little incomplete on Hawkeye.
Yeah, 100. I think she was just one of those characters that was like, there was a lot of characters in Hawkeye and in Echo, to be fair. But I was like, yeah, that character was just thrown in for Kate Bishop's plot.
Right.
It was just like, oh, you have this attachment. Now you guys can all feel what she's feeling.
Yeah, like Hawkeye had Jack Duquesne in it, who's played by an amazing actor from Better Call Saul. And like, that's his whole story. But this character has a much bigger arc in the Marvel comics, but like, that's as much as they can afford for him for Hawkeye.
Low key, they should just stop grabbing even fun characters from the comics, because they did that even in like She-Hulk, grabbing the costume designer that's also from the comics. And I'm like, I understand the like nod to give the comic people their names, but I'm like, that guy was really cool. Even in She-Hulk, the meeting that she had to go to, I was like, these are all really cool comic book characters that are only going to make an appearance at this like AA meeting.
The next series, I mean, we have Marvel's What If Season 3 coming in late December. We'll have Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, the animated series, coming at the end of January. But the next like big Marvel show, week to week live action, will be Daredevil Born Again. And so that type of show is a very different type of show. It almost feels like kind of a legal crime procedural in the way that like The Wire or The Shield or not necessarily Law and Order, but I'm trying to think of.
I think The Shield's a good one.
Yeah.
For people that remember The Shield. I love The Shield.
Not so episodic, but in the way that like Sopranos was kind of set in that world. Penguin right now we're seeing on HBO. But imagine there's seasons of Boardwalk Empire that I feel like are going to feel similar to Daredevil Born Again, where there's like two figures that are like representing the law and crime, and people like running for office that are like mixing crime and politics in this way. So The Wire, Boardwalk Empire, I think there's gonna be some similarities there.
That show is also just destined or set up for a good jump. Like, unlike the other shows, it's like, oh yeah, we don't need to know where Daredevil came from the beginning. We already know. Every single person knows. You're just gonna throw him into the whole batch, and he's gonna fly. He's gonna run. I guess it's what you do with the plot and how the writers do it. But I'm like, oh, you guys were set up very nicely. You teed up very good.
Getting back to some of our theories, one of the big questions on the show is the character of Jennifer Kale and what is her backstory. The first kind of hint we got toward it was in episode 3 when they were in the beach house. And my interpretation of that was that Jen, before I knew that she was a midwife and a root worker, which was revealed in episode 4, I thought she was like an actual doctor or a nurse who was performing like women's reproductive health care, and that doctor was still alive somewhere in the MCU, and that she would have to like find him. And I even stupidly speculated that he could have been Nicodemus West from the Doctor Strange films, but no, he's not. You said that that the doctor had traumatized her, and that trauma had bottled her powers.
Yeah, I thought she was just simply traumatized. Simply put, traumatized. You're gonna give us a scene of her being drowned. I'm gonna take it not even literally, but I'm like, okay, what would this mean metaphorically? And it's like a woman's powers were taken away by a man. So this man probably did something horrible to her if she lived centuries old. And she's a potions worker, so she makes literal magic. She heals people. And I was like, this man probably did not believe, like, no one wanted them to join. And I did a long video about this. That's still an educational video, very great to listen to, about like how the medicine was originally only a men's game, like most jobs, but like they did not want women, and especially Eastern medicine, coming in. So it was just like, oh, they would hate Jennifer Kale as a human being, and they would truly just do probably horrible things to her, which made her powers go away. And I think every single person was wrong on what really bounded Jen's powers. I think not a single person on the internet was right about it.
Right, yeah.
No one would have caught what they caught coming.
And it's because they didn't shoot any scenes for it that could have been in trailer footage that we could have determined it was just a few lines that were spoken in other scenes.
I don't think, I'm not going to be at fault for that one.
No, yeah.
No one should be at fault for that one, because it was thrown out of, no one would have, I mean, maybe someone like The Good Place, where it's like only one person guessed what hell really was, and they had his picture on the wall. There's that one person that was like, what if Agatha took her powers? Like, whatever.
Today's video is sponsored by Blue Chew. Pretty soon, you're gonna be asked the toughest question of the year. What are you thankful for? And sure, you could phone in your answer with one of the classics, my health, my family, my career. Or you could say something really memorable like, I'm thankful for my newfound sexual prowess. Thanks, Blue Chew. Grandma, why are you making that face? Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. It's super easy too. Just sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. It's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. You can take Blue Chew anytime, day or night. That way you can plan ahead or be ready for whenever an opportunity arises. If you're skeptical or don't think you need it, try it free for a month and see. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at bluechew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code New Rockstars at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com, promo code New Rockstars to receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information, and we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this video. I wanted to talk about the significance of the tarot cards. We had seen some art for tarot cards. We saw some glimpses of it in trailers. But Jess, I want to shout you out because you did a whole video with Lady Death. And I think you might have done another video just going witch by witch and talking about and how important that ended up being for episode 7.
It actually worked, yeah.
Yeah, you were right on the money for that. So well done.
Well, they teed it up very well. They brought in tarot cards and a lot of things in Agatha All Along, and specifically the end credit sequence for when Lilia shows up, but also just for this promotional material, every they are queens. Every witch had like a card that represented them, and those cards came into play during Lilia's episode heavily with like the tower. And when Lilia would say random things, it would be those cards that were in the promotional material. But that promotional material of like labeling Jen as the high priestess came through, and like Death was Rio and was literally underground rooted in the soil. So it was like, oh, there's a lot of things in these tarot cards that mean certain things, but also just the literal card itself represents what's going to happen in this show. And it was good. It was so great.
Now, speaking of Death, predicting that Rio Vidal, Aubrey Plaza's character, was Death is just something that we're not including here just because we saw the toy leak early on. So it's kind of hard. I don't even remember what I thought Aubrey Plaza was before I saw that toy leak.
I wasn't surprised. It was great to have her be Death. She's such a fun Death. Aubrey Plaza she probably read that script and was like, I get to be Death? Absolutely. When we first heard it, though, I was not surprised because, I think they said it in the show. Still not surprising. That's like, yeah, death and nature are one in the same. Yeah. It's like you have to. It's a full whatever arc, story, circle, whatever. Nature, Earth dies, reborn. Yeah.
I really like that take on death that the writers and the costumers brought in the show. I just thought that was really cool. That death isn't just decay and destruction. Yeah. It represents like a cycle of So another big prediction we got to give ourselves a pat on the back for is what's going on with Lilia. I theorized pretty early on from some of these non sequitur lines that we saw in episode 3 and episode 4 that she was like unstuck in time based on being a divination witch. I've seen too many of these shows where characters just say things out of nowhere or have these kind of like loose ends. And you just see this in time travel stories before where there's some bullshit unexplained phenomena that happens in the early act. And the only excuse is if they're going to loop back onto it in the future. In Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, Dan Harmon famously made fun of this, where Anne Hathaway's character is sitting in the cockpit as they're going through the wormhole, and some like blue comes up to her, and it's just nothing. Oh, yeah. It's just matter bending toward her, and she touches it. He's like, "Don't touch it!" And then, of course, it's McConaughey in the future looping back to her in that moment. And it's just like, Dan Harmon hates it because it's just like, yeah, just establish some stupid bullshit earlier. But he overcomplicates stories. I think audiences still really like it, especially if you can make it really meaningful, as they did on Agatha, by having Lilia going back through time trying to save Alice in that moment. I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I did not theorize that at all. To be fair, I didn't say I was correct on this. I just said it depends on how far her divination can go. So I assumed there was a possibility that she could commune with the dead. Ooh. And I was like, I know that we're going to get Agatha's mom, whether it's a flashback or a ghost scene. Because this, again, I think I made this video by the 3rd episode or the 4th episode. So we did not hear her be like, oh, I can't commune with dead. That's just a trick. And that happened after I made the theory video of like, oh, well, that gets rid of my thing. But I thought it was like Alice's mom talking to her and Agatha's mom talking to her and other dead witches like communing to her and being like, tell them this. But I was wrong.
I mean, people still have a lot of questions about how Lilia was able to tell all of them like right before she died what like that she would need to duck when she was called a coward. And our explanations for that, I'm not fully satisfied, but it's like, oh, she can, I guess, see into the futures of other characters. To me, I think that's kind of a weird plot hole that didn't need to be like established. Like,
I think, yeah.
We didn't get that much payoff out of Agatha going, oh, Lilia told me to duck when I hear the word coward. Like, was that cool in that finale episode?
No, I just think there was nothing to actually give Agatha. She could have said something to the teen and something to Jen, but there was nothing she could give Agatha other than that. And not even in like in the story mode. I'm saying like as a writer, if I had to look at this and she's saying something to everybody, what the hell is she gonna say to Agatha? Like it's like just be like, good luck, I hate you still. Like she had nothing to say. So I think they were like, just tell her to duck. Because also you could have told her to duck. She still dies. Yeah. She still dies at the end.
Yeah, well, she doesn't. I maybe there was something that she could have established about like death, because she did see death's true form. Yeah. But I assume Agatha knew what death's true form was the whole time anyway. Yeah. The other question is this idea of the Witch's Road itself. Like, was it real? Was it in someone's imagination? Like, was it a real realm? Was it an afterlife? And the question of, did Billy create the Witch's Road? And after episode 7, we were over on the break room. Jamie Jurak was with us, and we were all talking about this with Brandon. And after episode 6, our breakdown scripts, Brandon and Gina and Noah were helping spot everything in these rooms. And we all started to see like, oh, wait, these triangular lights. Hold on, this Lorna Wu poster, like, did Billy at least set decorate the Witch's Road? And that came up on the break room, and Brandon was pushing this theory a lot. And I agreed that, like, Billy, I didn't believe that he created the Witch's Road from nothing. I thought it existed outside of him, and he just decorated it. And this form of the Witch's Road was Billy's decor. But according to Jack Schaefer, the road did not exist until Billy came in there. So I kind of give myself like a C on that prediction. You said that it would be frustrating if that's the case, but you wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I think on these, when we were talking on break room, I need and I'll remember this for the next after show, I need to solidly say yes or no. I hear your guys' theories and I go, no. All right. No, I don't even say that. I say, I could see it. I could see it because they're like, I understand. I would just be frustrated. And I think that's what I said also here on the sneak peek was I was like, this is all Billy. I'm just going to be irritated. Yeah. But I think they did it in a good way where he kind of didn't know. He didn't know he was doing it, which I was like, this makes me mad. But then it was also like, but he did know Agatha, like kind of, he was like, I know about this girl. So I was like, okay, this is a little bit more redeeming, a little more justified. I was also frustrated with him making the Witch's Road and not knowing how big his powers are, because that was my biggest pet peeve with Gaia in Secret Invasion. I was like, I mean, yeah, Secret Invasion was a mess overall, 100%. But I was like, we just made her one of the most powerful people in the MCU, and she's just gonna do what? I was like, she's just going to walk over here, hang out. I was like, they're going to have to nerf her eventually. And that's how I feel about Wiccan. I was like, you can't make him the most strongest sorcerer here. I can't have him just walking around being like, I don't know my powers, but I'm also the strongest being. Because I'm like, I don't want to see him trip jump into success every single time then. I want to see him killing more people by accident next time I see him.
Right. I think Jack Schaefer's justification for it is that both Billy and Wanda derive their powers from chaos magic, and that chaos magic by its nature is chaotic, and it is limitless, and the one limit on it is that you cannot control it. It is sometimes going to come out of you in insane ways and take crazy shapes in different forms, and that is your burden, is that you have to be careful when you use it, because you don't know what's going to come out. What I think Marvel has to be careful about, though, is normally when people watch shows, if we're going to theorize that someone actually is doing something like behind the scenes, we're always going to assume that they're doing it intentionally, that there's some kind of intent. There's a reason why they're doing it. And you can't keep doing this kind of thing for every character of, oh, they're doing it, but they don't realize they're doing it.
Yeah.
You know, oh, this thing is, it worked for Wanda for Chaos Magic and WandaVision. It worked for Wiccan and Agatha All Along, but I don't think you can do that for every character.
You can't. And also my irritation, or my frustration, I should say, is also with like Wanda, she was getting punished for it. She was locked in Avengers Tower because she accidentally like blew up a building. And I was like, see how many times she's messing up? We don't have that many those many movies with Wiccan yet. So I know that this was so long ago, but you said this with the Marvels, during the first trailer of the Marvels, out of nowhere, Ms. Marvel's doing backflips, jumps, fighting. And I was like, when did she become so like talented? We didn't even see that part. And I'm like, I just don't want that also with Wiccan. And if he's gonna not have control of his chaos magic, I need to see those mistakes be happening. And I don't want them happening like, I know that this is an annoying thing to say, I don't want to see them happening like where they're fixable. I'm like, I want to feel it. I want to know, like, if he joins the Young Avengers, it's going to be hard for everyone on the team because this man can't control himself. I need to see that. And if he is proficient by the next time we see him, I'm going to be irritated.
Yeah, I agree. Another question for the show. We wondered, will this season end by reuniting Billy and Tommy? As of the episode 6, we're like, okay, well, how is the show going to end? And we thought, well, the road is going to end with Billy reuniting with his brother. In a way, they kind of did it by having Billy locate at least some vague imagery of what body his brother's soul is going into, but we didn't see like an embrace of any kind.
No.
And so I said no, but I also theorized that Billy's not going to want Tommy. He's going to be okay with letting his brother go, and some future title will bring them together. That was also wrong, though. So again, kind of a C for me on that theory, because literally the final line of the show is "Let's go find Tommy." So obviously it is important. You theorized on the Tommy question that you didn't know, but you said probably no. But you would have been excited to see who they cast.
Yeah, I think I was. I also think I pitched, if they did show up Tommy, it would have been a post-credit scene because it. I don't even know how to explain it. It's not for the story of the show because it was the entire mission. Seeing him would have been great, but it would have been like too rewarding. We got to string it out, slow burn. So I was like, post-credit scene, it's going to reveal like, Mom, I'm home. And that's Tommy. And then we're going to know they're searching for him. But also I was like, I don't think they have a cast for Tommy yet, because who else? I could not figure it out. I was like, who else is around the same age as Joe Locke? Another, from what I saw of that child drowning, another white boy. I was like, I don't know any actors yet. I was like, I don't think they have an actor in mind too by the time they bring Tommy into the actual MCU. But no, I don't think I probably said we weren't going to see him.
I mean, I think we also just assumed there would be a post-credits scene for this show, and we were wrong about that.
I will say that is another. Yeah, that we didn't even. Did we put that on the list?
No, we didn't put it on the list.
I did say that there would be a post-credit scene or a mid-credit scene. I said we'd get something like that, and we didn't.
So, like, any theories that we had for it were wrong, because I think some of our theories for a post-credit scene are like, what other kind of future-looking narrative agenda might Marvel Studios want to use this show to tease fans to look forward to, and none such existed on the show. 100%.
We talked about this on the break room on Monday about rewarding and just giving us a post-credit scene and things because we like kind of expect it now. And I think that's what I expect with Marvel every time. And I maybe shouldn't be expecting a post-credit scene every single time. But I do because you guys always did. Even if it wasn't ones that helped anything, you gave it to us. The Eternals one never came back. And I'm still like, okay, well, I'm still waiting for Harry Styles to show up in that weird outfit.
Yeah.
But like, I think I expect them now. So
why did I like, yes, go watch the break room conversation. They did a great job covering it. Did Brad Winderbaum just kill it? Remember before the show, we were like theorizing that Brad Winderbaum might secretly hate Agatha and want it to fail.
You think he got
Obviously,
rid of the
that's not true. He's works for Marvel. He wants everything Marvel to succeed. But I was just like, he seemed way more excited for What If than he did for Agatha. And now it's like looking ahead to What If, I'm excited. But Agatha was a jam. Like, I loved it. Like, how could you not be excited for Agatha if you work at Marvel going into it?
Was it Brad's idea?
And he's like, did he kill its post-credit scene?
Oh my god, it might have. That's also the hard part is like they still have to open the door for another, like we said, another thing. And I don't know what that other thing would have been other than Mephisto showing up in Ironheart, which they shot 3 years ago. And then it's like, they don't have Vision Quest ready yet. So it's like, what else would the post-credit scene have been? But
could have just been answering one of these questions.
I don't think Brad Winderbaum also has that power to be like, no.
Could have just been Senor Scratchy as Herb is petting him, looking up at the sky.
That's true. It could have been just something really like silly, like Herb being like, oh, my car's gone. Herb got those one lines in, so I wouldn't be surprised if one of the post-credit scenes was just Herb like dropping the bag of groceries just exploded from the bottom, and he's like, those witches. Yeah. Them witches.
One last theory we'll talk about is the question of the Darkhold. After episode 1, I thought the Darkhold was going to be a much bigger deal on this show. The fact that we got this kind of like first letter of every word spelled Darkhold, written by Andrew Ugo, anagram for Wondagore. I was like, oh, this show's like the pilot of a show is where you seem to like give your viewer the glossary, the index of everything that could come up on the show. Like, it's almost like, I don't know, I'm equating it to improv again, but the organic opening of an improv show or the pattern game, you know, like you're kind of saying, hey, you're making a promise to the viewer. But this show did not do that. It had this kind of interesting pilot that I still love, but it really felt like a pilot that was just easing viewers from WandaVision into the world of Agatha. And really, the first episode of Agatha was like episode 2. That felt like a pilot. And not to say episode 1 was unnecessary because it was awesome. I very much loved it. But I think that was part of the calculus, knowing that these episodes are going to be releasing on the same night, that everyone would watch 1 and then go right into 2. But as episode 1 that just featured the Darkhold so heavily, I assumed at the Darkhold we would get some answers, especially knowing it was in the trailer as well in a future episode. So my theory was that she acquired the Darkhold by a deal with Death or a deal with someone else in exchange for her son Nikki. I just took that at face value. I thought that was going to be the truth, and it was not.
I think I believed it was either John or Brandon. I can't remember which one. This was the biggest debate on the after show between John and Brandon about what time she got that Darkhold. And I believed whoever said it was like before the, I mean, clearly that was the magic she was learning. We just didn't see it. But that's what I took it as. And we just didn't get any Darkhold really at all.
Yeah,
so.
I think the implication was that the Darkhold was destroyed in all of its forms, and that's it. Like, this show is not about the Darkhold, but it just seemed like there's still so many mysteries 100. Of like her going to that library and Dennis poking his head through the books.
That scene was so unnecessary for how dramatic it was, and that's why it did stick out to me too, because I was like, why would he have been like silently like, yeah,
it was scary as shit. And I think that was one moment where the producers of the show didn't realize how viewers would interpret that scene in the first episode of a show. It seems like you're setting up a big question, and the show was not at all interested with the Darkhold. And you could have just had, I don't know, some kind of answer to that it later.
I feel like they would have. This is a situation where I think it was more Marvel, because I'm 100% sure you guys would love to have answered the questions about, or not even loved, but you would have addressed it. I'm sure there's like 5 writers in that room that were like, should we talk about the Darkhold? And I'm sure Marvel's like, we don't even know what really is going on with the Darkhold. So not yet. It's so funny doing the research for What If. Brad Winderbaum talks about the guy like the head one. I think there's a couple people on this team, but the head guy in charge that keeps up with the continuity and has to deal with the poor everything behind Marvel. And I think it takes a lot of time to be like, it's a lot of debating, trial and error of like what works with the Darkhold. And I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking about it, but I'm like, sometime you guys are going to have to talk about it. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you just forever will never tell us anything about the Darkhold, and that will just be the mystery.
I also don't pity whoever that guy is, because it's your only job.
It's a hard job.
We have to do that for our jobs.
I think
on top of every other type of like video production we have to do. A lot of you on Reddit and on the internet have full-time jobs and then just are better at it than people who are paid full-time salaries by Marvel Studios to do it, dude. And nothing else. I assume that they don't have to do anything else. Maybe they also have to refill paper in the copy or something.
Yeah, he's also just the PA. He's also their PA. The only I will say the one reason I feel I'm like, I pity it, because I'm like, you think you're right, you got all your notes down, and then we make a video that's like, you messed up
You're
here.
wrong.
And you know what sucks? You know what sucks? He'll be like, I didn't mess up. The art person copied what was on the wiki. Like, and that's why right. I feel bad. When I had to meet this poor woman I met the woman that leads the continuity and all the Bibles for Avatar. And I was like, I would hate to have your job. For James Cameron Avatar movies. She's like, I know everything. Also, this woman looks exactly how you would expect. She's like a librarian, dark, big rim, black glasses, jet black hair. She knows everything about Avatar. Everything. And I was like, girl, no. I was like, I feel like, luckily we're not like over a magnifying glass for her work, but I'm like, that poor man at Marvel, I'm like, you messed up here. You gonna fix this? You gonna fix this over here?
So overall, I think Agatha All Along, just like how many things, the fact we went from the Lilia episode to Billy Witch's Road, and the fact that there was no Mephisto, we were pretty restrained with it. I think this might have been our most successful show that did have a lot of theories to it. Now, there's been a lot of shows that we've covered and movies that we covered that weren't very big theory projects. This was a big theory project where we could have gotten a lot wrong and we didn't. And so I'm proud of us. I'm proud of everyone at New Rockstars for doing it while we still had some fun. You know, it's not like we limited ourselves fun wise. Our minds still drifted to some very weird places, but I had a blast.
Yeah, I think this one was definitely fun to theorize on. My still favorite, though, unfortunately for my theories, was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, where I only got one thing right, and it was that Lila dies. Yeah. I was genuinely like, it's probably gonna be Lila, and then that little otter got shot.
Yep.
And I won $100 that day.
Now, the person who I think has 100% A+, weirdly, so the Reddit community of Marvel Studio spoilers, we won't go too much into this, but they have kept track of all the different scoopers, and they said that Can We Get Some Toast, who some people think is the same person as My Time to Shine Hello, but we don't really know, was 100% accurate.
Yeah. I always say she. I always assume, I'm like, she knows what she's talking about. Some people believe that
Shine is... Yeah,
they just have 2 accounts?
I think they're different people that might know each other, but
I love Can We Get Some Toast?
They tracked 11 different scoops or theories or just claims that Can We Get Some Toast said. Things like the fact that in Agatha All Along, that the incident in WandaVision will be covered up as an Avengers training exercise. They predicted that almost a year in advance. They said that each member of the Salem 7 has an animal form. They said that Darkhold Diaries, which was entitled to take place 3 years after WandaVision, and we will see Billy at ages 13 and 16. So specific. But it means that they must, that's all from episode 6 of the show.
Can We Get Some Toast? Quoted lines like it's my heart is black and it only beats for you. And I went, okay, this person works inside of Marvel
or knows someone who worked on that episode, but they had a source who
had someone that was giving really them literal lines, so literally copy and paste lines.
We had a project in the works for a while where we're gonna like just based off of what they knew when they knew it, try to figure out who these people are without revealing who they are, without like doxing them or getting them in trouble, but just like helping narrow down, showing our process, our research process. If you want to see us do that without exposing this person, because we don't want to do that. We don't want to get anyone in trouble. But I think based off of our insights into how, like, who at these studios knows these things, we can kind of like close some doors and just kind of show the security process at Marvel Studios.
Do you think Can We Get Some Toast is not like, what if, can we get, okay. Drama alert. But what if Can We Get Some Toast is just someone that works at Marvel and they know they're doing this? Not saying that it's wrong. Can we get some toast? I love it. I'm here for it. I just know that for like The Boys, there was a scooper that literally The Boys was like, hey, we don't mind these scoops, just maybe change a little bit so they're not spoiled completely. And it was like fully like what was happening in the seasons of The Boys. And I was like, oh yeah, sometimes they let this stuff slide. Didn't Ryan Reynolds say like, I let that thing come out? He was like, I leaked it.
Ryan Reynolds leaked the test footage for the first Deadpool movie, and I think he leaked to the press some of these false theories about like Taylor Swift.
Also, it gets you.
Well, he was asked by Entertainment Weekly later. I don't know if it was Taylor Swift, but he said that there was like, who was it? Was it Professor X? There was someone who we thought was going to be in Deadpool and Wolverine. And it probably wasn't Taylor Swift, but it was someone who was not at all in Deadpool and Wolverine that he said was going to be in it.
I know. I remember that. And that is true because it like 100%, you're hanging out with, there's rumors of her joining the X-Men cast or just being someone. And it was Taylor Swift. It was like added up to be Taylor Swift. Can We Get Some Toast just be someone at Marvel that's leaking this stuff? It does, because it gets really big. It gets very popular and we start talking about it and we all make videos about it. We all reshare it. We all link the person that did it. We make articles. It gets our hype up.
Yeah.
And it's things that aren't too spoilerish.
See, I don't think because Toast wasn't Toast, like legally they went after that one.
Oh. There
was one of them where they sent them a cease and desist based off of their Instagram. And I think it was, Can We Get Some Toast over Brave New World stuff? Or is either Brave New World or one of these other ones that specifically, I know there was also the Quantumania script leak. Or remember the subtitles? That was someone just like, it was just leaked that whole thing. I think that was a different source, but they went after Toast. So and that's why I don't think it was in that case. But I think there might be some other scoopers who are, it's like Kevin Feige himself, or it's one of these execs. It's Nate Moore who's just posting all the stuff.
Nate Moore, send it to us. Send me the scripts.
Show us what you got. All right. Looking ahead to the next week on New Rockstars, we are now in our Harry Potter rewatch season. Yesterday we had our first of the Sorcerer's Stone / Philosopher's Stone breakdown, and then coming up a week from yesterday, next Saturday, will be Chamber of Secrets. We also, any big news that came out of D23 Brazil, we will be talking about on the channel this week. And then Jessica's breakdown of the Penguin finale will be on the channel tomorrow on Monday.
Oh, sad to see it go.
Yeah, it's been so
happy
good.
To see it come. Sad to see it go.
Yeah, such a great show. All right, let's quickly end with what we're watching this week. I can't think of any other reason you'd want to just unplug from the world and just escape into any other fictional universe that is a form of comfort food.
Yeah, I just put on my Oculus, my Meta. I just disappeared. No one could find me for 3 days.
Is there anything that you've been kind of drifting into just to feel the warm embrace of something else?
Before the elections, I was watching Mad Men. I started rewatching Mad Men from season 1, episode 1. Such a weird start. AMC Plus.
You have the AMC Plus. Okay.
And I was going to just do the trial, and then I was like, oh, Mad Men's on here. And then I just bought it. I full out bought it. So I am watching it from season 1, which is so hard to do because I always jump. I realize I jump to like season 2, or I jump to a specific episode. That's because I'm like, I don't need the beginning. Mm-hmm. But then I'm like, no, I want to see the pilot. I want to see how it played out the entire first season. But after the election and during it, my comfort show is Adventure Time. So I watched all of Adventure Time. I woke up in the middle of the night, like last night, because it ended. And it was the final episode. And I had to stop it. And I went back and restarted from season 1, episode 1. It's just my comfort show. I like woke up to it. I was like, this is the ending. And I had to replay it to be sane again.
Yeah. I watched, before we were just watching movies that we felt like watching. So we watched Wind River, the Taylor Sheridan film from 2017 that has Elizabeth Olsen and Jeremy Renner in it, and like half the cast of Echo is in it. Graham Greene is in it. So good. That movie is awesome. It is so good. Now, I really love it. My wife was kind of like, that's fine. I'm like, no, I think it's really good. And I really like watching movies that have like a lot of Marvel actors in it doing things that are not Marvel, that are just playing other roles. And I think it's a really cool film. And then on Wednesday, we watched like it literally everyone at Rockstars is like, let's just kind of like take the day off kind of and just kind of do what you need to do. And Kelly and I just watched The Office. And that's what we do. And I've been looking into some research about like binge watching old shows that that just like you have in the background. And there's some kind of weird like dopamine release of like just watching something that in which you know how it ends. And I started to expand that into some macro theory that, is that why we have like, can we get some toast scoop leak culture to where people read Marvel leaks because they just need to know how it ends. And it's that way they can go watch these movies and have their theories and what they've read affirmed as opposed to being surprised. And I'm like, that would kind of explain like if you're so accustomed to watching political news or sports news in which it's happening in real time and you have no idea how it's going to end, that produces a lot of anxiety and stress. And so alternatively, people may just want to unplug by just watching something that's kind of predictable and they know what's going to happen with Jim and Dwight at the end of this episode. So for me, that's why we watched The Office and it worked. And it was nice.
That's nice. Yeah. I just want to, sometimes you just want to go back to go back, but that's why I do Adventure Time all the time. I'm like, this is easy. The episodes are 15 minutes a piece and it's out of the realm of both work and real world. Yeah. So I'm like, it's not something that we'll ever talk about on New Rockstars or something I have to cover, but it's also something that it's a fantasy. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm just going to sit this and watch here with my cat.
Feels like a nice warm bath.
I'm sitting in my like trash heap of my bed crying and I'm like, ooh, it's warm and cozy.
Let us know in the comments below what your kind of comfort food show is because, we're going to need it. And we'll be here at New Rockstars to help you watch and break down and appreciate all the shows that you love from these Marvel shows that we've been talking about to any other big news that we have coming up over the next few months in the worlds of TV and film. Thank you so much for joining us at Agatha All Along. I think with this, you're not going to hear us talk about Agatha too much now. Yeah, we're ready to close the book and move on.
It's going. And now we're entering What If? Is that the only?
I think we got What If? We got Wicked coming this month. Very excited for.
I was like, for superhero things, it's only What If, right? Though
well, again, some big news from D23 Brazil for Brave New World and for a big year coming in 2025 with Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, Daredevil Born Again. Yeah, it's going to be a big year. So we're kind of shifting into that season more than anything else. We'll follow Jessica at Lulu_Clemons. Follow me at EA Voss. Subscribe to all 3 channels in the New Rockstars network. Doing some really fun stuff on the break room right now. So be sure to subscribe there and subscribe here to New Rockstars. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.